Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome back to an episode of Total War Arena. So, we are a little bit late on this patch notes video. Obviously, the actual 3.1.13 patch came out on Thursday, and I'm recording this now on Sunday, so I'm already quite a few days late post-patch release. But I normally try and get these out the day before the patch actually comes out. But with sort of a couple of things conspired against me this week. Partly all the stuff's moved from sort of wargaming to creative assembly in terms of community management. So there's a little bit of a hoo-ha going on with patch notes and stuff, so I didn't get them quite as early as I normally do. And then new computer, and then I was away a lot with work, so all this kind of made it pretty difficult to get these out. And then I wasn't going to bother doing this video because I thought, well, everyone's obviously got the patch now, what's the point? And I was having an eye and I thought, well, I might as well do it anyway because it kind of makes kind of a nice record, and I've always done one for every other patch, and it would kind of be a shame to not have at least sort of some looks and opinions on what the changes have been in this latest patch, even if it's just sort of a bit of a retrospective view of what has changed. There's quite a lot changed in this patch, to be honest. It was quite a big balance patch. Not a lot in the way of new features, but quite a lot of units got changed, and some pretty key changes, particularly around things like pikes, as well as some quite controversial changes around arch mechanics. But anyway, normal sort of things first. Some basic things they changed, which it's not too much of a problem. I'm not entirely sure if I agree with the change or not. Can't quite decide. They increased loading timeout. So when you load into a match, you normally, like, I forget what it used to be. It used to be like 1 minute 45, 1 minute 50 or something. So you load in, and that's how long you have to wait. And once everyone loads in, it goes down to 5 seconds. But if a player doesn't load in within the 1 minute 50, etc., what it is, then they get marked AFK, I think, from the start of the game. So they've increased that now to, I think it's around 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes 50, something like that. So to give them longer to load in, which is fair enough, I suppose. It gives everyone a good chance to get into the game. So it probably is a good thing overall. It just can be a little bit frustrating when there's 19 people waiting there for like 3 minutes for one person to load in. But I kind of get why they've done that. They wanted to so that everyone can get in without getting marked as AFK at the start of the match. Although maybe a better fix would be to change the way it marks AFK players. Another little balance of life change they made, which is good, which you might not have noticed if you've not been playing it, is they were limited now on your tier differences you can select with your commanders. So for example here, all my units are tiers 1, tier 8. Tier 8 are all the Insubri swordsmen. Previously, pre-patch, I could take, say, 2 units of Insubri swordsmen and then 1 tier 4 Libyan infantry. Which is just obviously a terrible idea because a tier 4 infantry would just get absolutely massacred. But people often did it as a way of getting a lot of experience on a lower tier unit by throwing them into a higher tier match. And yeah, it just kind of meant that the team was at a massive disadvantage because one of the units of the players is not really contributing anything to the game. They now put a +1, -1 limitation on that, so I could take tier 7 to tier 9 around my tier 8s, but not any higher or lower than that. So it's a nice little change. Stops people from bringing tier 1s into tier 8 games, stuff like that. So certainly a good thing. So then we move on to largely to the sort of balance changes that are coming, and these are kind of the sort of the critical parts of this, and the bulk of them, at least a good proportion of them, are coming on to movement speed changes or development of the way this whole system is going to be working. Mostly affecting barbarians, particularly barbarian cavalry. So obviously, barbarian cavalry traditionally easily the fastest units in the game. Cavalry you can get up to sort of 12, 13, 14 meters a second in terms of movement speed. They're really powerful, really quick, and it makes for some great units. Obviously, it doesn't change the overall strength of the unit, but it gives the unit a lot of flexibility and a lot of choice, and that's kind of what they are looking to negate slightly, to give it, I guess, to bring it more in line with the movement speed of other cavalry. I suppose it's not a massive problem, and the sort of degree of changes that they've actually made from looking deeper into the patch notes is not massive. They're sort of removing 0.4, 0.5, 0.6 on the patch notes, so it's not horrendous, so I can certainly live with it. So that's not too bad. If I can scroll down on the thing, I can actually see a bit more about some of the specific changes. Let's have a look. For example, like the Harbingers, which are the Team 9 Barbarian Cavalry, they got their movement speed nerfed from 8.7 base to 8.12 base, which isn't too bad. If you think of the time you include, what's the word? What's our main skill? Not infiltration, the other one, momentum into that, then they'll start with you pretty quickly still. You're still going to be 10, 11, even if you're just not 12, 13. You should easily be still the fastest cavalry on the battlefield, and just not quite as fast as you want to be. to be a little bit more careful. Probably quite good for me with my Numidian cavalry, maybe giving them better access to things like my double charge. I might stand a better chance of catching up with some of the barbarian stuff now, because they're not going to have quite that disparity in movement speed as they did before. While I mentioned the Harbingers and the Gungnir Chargers, they're both of slight note is that they have increased the missile block chance of the Gungnir Chargers from 16 to 31 and the Harbingers from 17 to 34, which is nice because if you've played the Gungnir Chargers, they're one of those units that really fast but are just so fragile that, an archer looks at them and then they just get killed instantly. So yeah, I think that's a nice change all in all, a good improvement and a step in the right direction. So that all seems good. They have also adjusted and nerfed Barbarian Arches movement speed, but not only movement speed, but their shield armor as well. This is a little bit more significant. So you think traditionally, I had a real run down the Barbarian Archer line. I got to tier 9, and if you watch some of my previous videos, I always felt Barbarian Archers were significantly superior to Greek Archers, in part because of the movement speed, particularly with things like the tier 7s, the ambushers were ludicrously fast. You could get them to like 7 meters a second for infantry. And run that at a really continuous rate. So they were really dominant, and that really came into effect as well in things like ranked mode as well, where it became really obvious how sort of sillily too fast they were. But more than that, because all Barbarian Archers have shields, they were getting quite a lot of shield armor, which was putting their total armor value quite a lot higher than, say, the equivalent Greeks. Because even if the Greeks might say have a body armor value of 140 and the Barbarians 130, but then the Barbarians are getting 35 shield armor, so suddenly their armor values are almost as good as the Greeks' weapon damage, and then of course they're only doing penetration while the Barbarians are committing full damage against the Greek archers. The Barbarians were getting a little bit powerful, I think, in some of that sense. So they've basically nerfed the movement speed slightly of some of the really fast Barbarian Archers, things like the ambushers. I won't go through the exact speed of every one, but if you want to flick to the patch notes, it's got a full list of every change, and they are nerfing the shield armor basically as well. It's kind of a double nerf for Barbarian Archers. All in all, not great if you're a Barbarian Archer player, but I think probably largely positive changes at the moment. On top of that, though, one slight, very mini, tiny little improvement you're getting is that Ambiorix is having a change to his arc on his From the Shadows. So it goes really up and over in his looping shots. Now it's gone from a 55-degree angle down to a 50-degree angle, so it's not quite like that. It's almost mortaring, just very slightly shallower, if that's a benefit. Very slightly, it should make it maybe slightly quicker on the on the rate it takes for your arrows to travel, quite so steep enough before they come down. So yeah, very minor improvement. So that's sort of the bulk of the movement speed based balance changes, and then obviously the shield balance changes for Barbarian Archers as well. Then we get onto the two sort of more controversial ones, the Pike Changes. So Pikes traditionally, I'm not a Pike player. I've never played Pikes. So that's why I'm not the best to comment on this, but traditionally Pikes are obviously quite effective in the sense that if you get caught in the front of Pikes, they basically kill you. There's nothing you can do about it, no block, anything like that. They just sort of cut you down if you get caught in the front. They're lightsabers on sticks, as they sort of known on the Reddit. And that's fine, it kind of works well, but the consequences of that, they felt that they could be certainly a bit overpowered in certain situations, particularly when they had like people with Kanani with rapid advance, which massively increased the turn speed, and kind of made the Pikes able to sort of spin on the spot a bit. They tried to nerf this a couple of patches ago. Obviously they didn't feel it's been sufficiently, so basically what they've done is they've added fatigue onto Pikes, like normal spearmen. So as you start to push into enemy, your fatigue builds up, and if your fatigue builds up too much, then of course you can no longer land hits, you no longer can get knockback, and basically your Pikes will be like your spears, they'll just be very much more vulnerable, and you won't be knocking the enemies back, they'll get in amongst you and cut you down pretty easily and pretty effectively. So yeah, you've got to be kind of careful of that. So that's kind of really changed how Pikes play a lot, I think, because while traditionally being quite brutally effective, they now feel like, I think a lot of people feel that they've been over-nerfed because of the fatigue changes, and one sort of maybe unintended consequence of it is the fact that elephants have really got away from quite a big one, because if you think Pikes are one of the classic counters to elephants. Between Pikes and Javelins, they're the two main counters, and by taking away a lot of the ability of Pikes to do damage in that sort of situation, then you sort of not relieved elephants a little bit of one of their main counters, and that's kind of one of the consequences of the change. So yeah, it's not all good on the Pike front. I think it could be possibly a little bit dangerous. I think it would have been better to maybe target some of the more specific problems. You know, trying to deal with Kanane's issues. If she's too powerful, that's fine, but try and deal with that. Don't need to sort of worry too much about trying to nerf the sort of whole class in general, I don't think. But anyway, it's been done, so we'll see how that balances out over sort of the next couple of weeks. I guess if they feel they've massively overdone it, there'll be a rollback, but I kind of have to wait to see on that one. Then the other one they've done, which I agree is really quite bad, is Kanane's Hunt. So, Kanane's Hunt, I don't know if there's any Kanane Archers left alive. There is one here. Perfect. Now, traditionally, just gives enemy visibility. You know, you click on an enemy, find it, and then if they run into grass, you can still see what they are doing, even, you know, if they're in forest or grass and you haven't got visibility on them. And, you know, it lasts 40 seconds like it does here, and, you know, it's not an unuseful ability, but I think a lot of people didn't bother using it, partly because I think early on it had a really low targeting range, so you don't really get used to using it at lower tiers, and then suddenly when your targeting range starts to increase at higher tiers, you've never been using it, and so it's kind of hard to get into the rhythm of actually using it. So that's kind of one thing. But then they've changed it by one, increasing its range, so it's now got a lot more visibility to it. But more than that, they've put this -20 missile block chance on it. So you've now got a long-range clickable ability that's going to give -20 missile block chance to enemy units, which is really going to be quite effective. So it's terrible in two ways, really. Partly, it's going to basically make redundant, particularly in things like base capping, things like Testudo, because Testudo, you know, if that's rocking sort of 115, click that, it'll drop it down to 95, and, you know, you only got to land one arrow on a unit, and you knock off all the base cap points. So it's going to change a lot of that. Testudo, Fight in the Shade, Shield Wall, that sort of thing. I'm going to change that quite a lot. And it's also going to quite rapidly change Slinger and Archer fights, because traditionally, Archers obviously have little mini shields, and they have a raised shields ability, kind of like the tier 7 Roman Javelins. And that means that while the Archers are doing superior damage than the Slingers have better range defense because they have decent missile block chance. Now you're going to be able to add a -20 missile block chance to the Slingers. I think it's going to really change how it plays out for the sort of Slinger-Archer engagements. Because, you know, obviously those Archers are now going to be able to sort of apply their damage a lot better. And then just in general on units, you know, Barbarians like these guys here, for example, I bet I have very low missile block chance on these guys. Well, I've got my Force March on at the moment, so it's normally 46, but then you can take that down to 26. I'm just going to get absolutely annihilated by enemy Archers if I get a Hunt applied to me. You know, particularly with the fact these guys don't have a tremendous amount of armor anyway, you know, 124. I'm going to be taking full damage, you know, 80, 90 damage per hit. And taking full hits, really, because they're going to reduce my missile block chance down to something so low. I'm not really sure why they've done this. The only thing I can think is that they've been looking at use of Hunt, just from an analytics point of view in the back end, and seen that it's not really being used very much, and they therefore decided it's kind of ineffective and should be reworked. Which, possibly, you know, not necessarily wrong if that's the case, but to then give it an ability like this, particularly when, you know, the Archer meta, as it were, is considered to be quite a problem in the game at the moment, or certainly a problem certainly on the more powerful side of things. Giving Kanane a buff like this probably isn't really necessary. So yeah, so we've had that added in. So yeah, I feel that's not a particularly positive change. But yeah, that pretty much sums up the bulk of the changes going on. Let me just have a last flick through the patch notes, make sure I've not missed anything. As I say, all the Archers are getting things. A lot of things are getting minor hit point buffs. You know, a lot of cavalry units are getting minor hit point buffs as well. Nothing massive. It's like, you know, Praetorian cavalry 496 to 551, so they're gaining like 50 hit points. As a percentage, it's not that great. So I don't think that's a massive problem. Although, you know, you sometimes can't help feeling that Creative Assembly will sometimes keep shooting themselves in the foot slightly. Like, for example, they increased the hit points of the Sarmatian Lancers from 431 to 451. And even though that's only, what, like a couple of percent of an increase, you know, 5% or something, when the Sarmatian Lancers are so clearly known to be an overpowered premium unit that are probably a little bit too much for their tier, why buff their hit points? Why not just have left them? There seems to be no point in to do it. You're just going to antagonise people doing things like that, even if it doesn't really make any difference to how the unit really plays out. You know, buffing units that are considered to be a bit OP anyway just seems to be a bit of a pointless move, really. So yes, I don't know why they did that. And yeah, that is pretty much the bulk of the changes. Lots of minor changes and things like that. Happily, they added a few minor changes to the Carthage Union. The Javelins, which I was quite pleased about, they added Caltrops to them. And they have reworked how Caltrops deploy as well, actually, because they're no longer going to have the break charge mechanic attributed to them. So you as a cavalry player are going to charge in against some enemy Javelins, and they put Caltrops down in front of themselves. Then it's no longer going to have a break charge effect against you. It's just going to be a 60% movement speed modifier. So unless you're going really slowly, if you ran into them in a forest, it may knock you down slow enough that your charge will drop off. But it's not going to have the direct break charge like it did before. So it will be kind of different to how it plays out. So yeah, so quite a few changes in the balance from a balance point of view going on there. Sort of a bit mixed, I think, on some of the changes. I think there's some things, and they've tried to adjust things, listening to what people have said. I just don't think they've necessarily quite got it quite right on this one compared to some of the other patches. So hopefully we'll maybe see a few changes and a few fixes going forwards. I think they do genuinely try and listen to what people are saying. It just there's a bit of quite a lag between what people say, the time it hits the rebalancing team, the balancing team, and then by the time it actually makes it into a patch. I think that's what a lot of people feel as well. But, of course, it takes time for these things to come out. So, yeah, so that was the 3.1.13 patch. So, yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below. How do you feel? I'm particularly interested to feel how you feel about the Pike changes and the Kanane hunt changes. That Kanane hunt change is certainly interesting. I would have thought that would rile up quite a few people, but maybe I'm wrong. So, yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please subscribe to the channel for lots more Total War Arena content, and I shall see you all on the next episode.